All right, strap yourselves in because we're about to unlock some serious darkness with Clive Barker's The Scarlet Gospels.
Oh, unlock is a good word to use there. I mean, one of the things the Scarlet Gospels is all about is that forbidden knowledge, that wanting to know stuff you probably shouldn't.
Right, and the guy's stuck right in the thick of it. That's Harry the Moor. He's our detective, seen a lot of crazy supernatural stuff. But he's not, your typical hero, kind of world-weary, haunted by his past, definitely someone you don't want to cross. What do you think about Harry? What makes him tick?
He's really interesting, because he's got this push and pull thing with the occult. Drawn to it, but at the same time, it's messed him up pretty bad, especially when his partner, Scummy, gets killed by a demon. That really sets him on this path, confronting the darkness, even if it means confronting his own demons, too.
And that makes me think about his tattoos. They aren't just for show, right? They're like a link to the magic, almost like an alarm system. How do those tattoos fit into this whole knowledge thing?
More than just warnings, they show how much Harry knows how much he carries. A magician, Kaz, inked them onto him, and we'll talk about Kaz later, but they basically react when supernatural stuff is around, so it's like Harry has a sixth sense for danger. Knowing all that, it comes at a price. It isolates, it makes him an outsider, always aware of the darkness most people don't even see.
That's pretty creepy when you think about it. And speaking of creepy, we can't forget that LaMarchand's box. That's not your grandma's puzzle box. Solving it opens a door to hell. Literally. What are your thoughts on that box? What's it all about in the story?
Temptation, pure and simple. That box is evil, but it's seductive too. It's intricate and beautiful. Anyone who touches it is drawn to it. It promises, forbidden stuff, experiences you can't get anywhere else. But there's a price. Open that box, you unleash forces you just can't understand. And once it's open, there's no going back. Makes you think, right, what would you do if you found that box? Could you resist it?
I'd like to think I could, but who knows? Barker makes it feel so real, that temptation. And what about the guys who come through that door? Pinhead and the Cenobites. Some of the scariest creatures ever. What struck you about them? What's their role in all this good versus evil stuff?
Especially Pinhead. He's fascinating, the leader of the Cenobites, and they're all about exploring the extremes, pain and pleasure. But what's really interesting is that he's not just some mindless monster. He's smart. He's articulate. Even philosophical in a way. He's got this idea that pain and pleasure are just two sides of the same coin, and he wants to go beyond what humans can experience. It makes you think about suffering, about what we can even perceive. Is there a point where pain becomes pleasure? It's messed up.
It really is, and the way Barker describes him, the pins, the hooks, the leather, it's scary, but you can't look away.
Barker doesn't hold back on the details. He wants you to feel uneasy, to face the darkness inside yourself. But it's not just to shock you. He uses all those grotesque details to get at bigger ideas, about bodies, about desire, about what it means to be human.
All right, I'm ready to get into that scary world. Let's talk about Harry going to hell. Barker paints a seriously nightmarish picture. What are some of the main places, and what do they tell us about this version of hell?
Well, it's not just fire and brimstone. It's huge and complex, this hell. It's got its own rules, its own hierarchy. There's this city, Paratha. It used to be this grand place, but now it's just decaying, all this decadence. Then there's the monastery of the Cenobitical Order. It's this oppressive building where the Cenobites live. And then there's the Trench. Now that's a seriously messed up place where the truly damned are tormented. Each place shows a different side of suffering, And what happens when you give in to your dark side?
Doesn't sound like a place you want to visit. And within all that, there's the Unconsumed. He's this incredibly powerful demon who judges the Cenobites. What's his deal? Where does he fit in?
It's weird. He's this contradiction. He's on this throne of fire, and he doesn't seem to feel any pain. He judges the Cenobites and whoever else is brought to him, but he's also totally detached from it all. The suffering doesn't bother him and makes you think about what real power is, Is it hurting people, or is it being above it all?
That's a really good question. And speaking of power, we can't forget the Scarlet Gospels themselves. They're not your typical holy book. What are they exactly? And why does Pinhead want them so bad?
They're like the ultimate magic textbook. Spells, rituals, stuff that could reshape reality itself. Pinhead thinks they're the key to even more power. Like he could go beyond what he is now, maybe even challenge, existence itself.
Which goes back to that whole forbidden knowledge thing, right? The consequences of messing with stuff you shouldn't. It's like a big theme in this book.
Oh, absolutely. The Scarlet Gospels is all about what happens when you want too much. The dangers of ambition, the pull of the unknown. Pinhead going after these Gospels, it's like humanity's own desire for knowledge and power. And the book asks, is that desire going to destroy us all?
And caught in the middle of all this is Norma. She's Harry's friend, a psychic. And she gets dragged into this whole mess. What did you make of her character?
She's hope. Even in the face of all this darkness, she's strong. Pinhead kidnaps her, tortures her, but she doesn't break. She's compassionate, connected to the spiritual world. Even in hell, she finds a way to help people, guide them, comfort them.
Which goes back to what we were saying before, good and evil always being there, right? Even in hell, there's some light, like with Norma.
Exactly. And that's what makes this story so good. It's not just good guys versus bad guys. It's more nuanced, shows how those forces can be together, even in one person.
Okay, let's talk about that big showdown between Pinhead and Lucifer. They literally reshape hell when they fight. What's your take on that?
It's more than just a fight, It's about ideas, about who controls hell. Lucifer, he's the fallen angel, right? He represents the old ways, the old rules, all about fear and punishment. Pinhead's different. He's all about chaos, doing his own thing. He wants to break free from the old ways and make hell his own.
So it's not just about who wins the fight. It's about what hell will be like afterwards. And it sounds like Pinhead winning changes every time.
Big time. It's a power shift, a new era. It makes you think about what it means to be a leader, about empires rising and falling. Is real power about control, or about being able to handle change and chaos?
That's an interesting way to think about it. And what about Harry after all this? He's seen some crazy stuff, faced his own demons, and witnessed reality breaking down. What does the ending say about Harry's journey, about good and evil?
It's sad and hopeful at the same time. Harry comes out of it messed up physically and emotionally. He loses his sight, which shows just how much he's been through. But he understands the supernatural world better now. He understands his place in it, he accepts his blindness, and becomes this protector, a guide for people lost in the darkness.
Bittersweet, for sure.
It is. It's like saying the fight between good and evil never really ends. There's always going to be darkness to fight. And sometimes winning comes at a price. But even when you lose so much, you can still grow. You can be resilient. You can find new ways to fight for what you believe in.
And speaking of fighting for what we believe in, there's one guy we haven't talked about much, Kaz. He's the magician who gave Harry those tattoos. What's his role in all this? Where does he fit in with all this magic and consequences stuff?
Kaz is complicated. He's Harry's mentor, but he's also a warning about how dangerous magical knowledge can be. He's seen magic corrupt people, and he carries that knowledge with him. With Harry, he's both a guide and a warning. He wants to help Harry, but he's also afraid Harry will fall into the same traps.
So Kaz represents the wisdom, the understanding of what magic really costs. And that makes me think about this string art. It's really important for protecting Harry. What exactly is it? And how does it fit into this whole good and evil thing?
It's a really cool idea. It's like a cosmic force, a guardian watching over Harry. It steps in sometimes, protects him from harm, and we don't really know what it is exactly, but it seems connected to Cad somehow. Maybe his power or something even older and stronger. But it's not just good, it's unpredictable, even dangerous sometimes. Like it's saying even the forces against evil aren't always simple or easy to understand.
Really makes you think. It's not just a clear-cut fight, right?
Right. The Scarlet Gospels doesn't give you easy answers. It's all about those gray area. It wants you to think about human nature and how good and evil can get all mixed up.
I like that. And I think we've covered a lot in this first part of our deep dive into the Scarlet Gospels. We've got the characters, the setting, the big themes, some of the important plot points.
Oh, we've just scratched the surface. There's so much more to talk about.
Absolutely. And part two, we'll go even deeper into those themes, those big moments. We'll try to understand what Barker's vision means, even today.
We're going to get into Pinhead's obsession with pain and pleasure, really break it down. We'll look at how Le Marchand's box works, and we'll examine the power dynamics between all these different forces battling it out, good versus evil.
That's the plan. So until then, keep reading and thinking. We'll be back soon to finish our exploration of the Scarlet Gospels. All right, we're back, ready to go even deeper into the Scarlet Gospels. Last time we talked about Harry's trip to hell, that face-off with Lucifer. But this book isn't just monsters and big fights, right? There's a lot more going on, like about power and ambition. What makes good and evil tick?
Definitely. One thing that really struck me is how there aren't easy answers in this book. It's not just good guy, bad guy, the end. It's all messy, gray areas, how both those forces can be in one person even.
Totally. Even Pinhead, he starts as a human, a soldier who wants knowledge and ends up becoming, well, the thing he was trying to understand.
Right. It's like a warning, his story about wanting to know stuff you shouldn't, how wanting power can twist even good intentions. Makes you wonder about free will too, Was Pinhead always going to end up like that, or did he choose it?
There's that scene, right, where the Hell Priest, he's still human then, he's in that room full of magic books, rare stuff, and he almost burns them all so no one else can have that knowledge. What do you think that tells us about him?
That's a big moment, that scene. It shows how ruthless he can be, how ambitious. It's not just about him learning stuff. He wants to control it. keep it from everyone else. It's like a preview of what he'll do as Pinhead to get those Scarlet Gospels, even betray his own people.
It really shows how knowledge is power, but it could be dangerous too, in the wrong hands, I mean.
No doubt, and it shows how much we as humans want to be in control, to master the things we don't understand.
It's like, what's that saying? Absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Exactly, and we see that play out when Pinhead gets the knowledge from the Gospels, and then Lucifer's power too. He becomes like a god. He remakes hell the way he wants.
But it's not a happy ending, is it? I mean, he gets what he wants, but he's lost everything that made him human. He's become the thing he was fighting against.
It's tragic, the irony of it all. He's all powerful, but he's not human anymore. It makes you think, what's the real cost of power? Is it worth giving up your humanity to get what you want?
And that question, it's all over the book. Harry's struggling to stay sane, facing all this horror. Norma, holding on to her faith even when she's suffering.
They show us how strong the human spirit can be, right? How we can still have love, compassion, even in the darkest times.
Like a tiny light in the darkness. They remind us that even when evil seems huge, hope can still exist.
Exactly, and that's what makes this story so powerful. There are these quieter moments, too, in the book, like when Harry goes to Norma's place in New York. It's this haven full of books, TVs just playing static, ghosts coming and going, looking to Norma for help. It's so different from hell.
Yeah, those two things side by side. It's like Barker's doing that on purpose, showing us that even with all the darkness, there can be peace, connection, sanctuary. Norma's place, it's a shelter from all the bad stuff, where the living and the dead can find some peace.
And Norma, being a psychic, helping those spirits, it adds to how the book explores the afterlife, right? What happens to us when we die?
Makes you feel a little better, knowing maybe there's someone like Norma out there listening, helping us find peace after we're gone.
We all want to feel connected, right? To have some meaning, something beyond just this physical world. Makes you think, maybe death isn't the end, maybe there's something more.
And speaking of connection, what about Harry and Norma? It's not a typical love story or anything, but there's this bond, this understanding. You can feel it.
Their friendship is a big part of what makes this book so good. They've both seen crazy stuff. They've both been hurt. They understand each other in a way no one else can.
Like two sides of the same coin, drawn to the supernatural, but both fighting the darkness in their own way. Even though Norma doesn't physically go to hell with Harry, you can still feel her there.
Her spirit's with him, even when she's not physically there. It gives him strength, reminds him why he's fighting.
And her last message to Harry about the world being sick, how everyone needs to help heal it, it's like she's challenging us to fight the darkness in our own lives.
Yeah, it's a powerful message. It sticks with you after you finish the book. Makes you think, what's my responsibility to the world? Can I make a difference? Even a small one.
And it goes back to that idea of good and evil always being there. Even in the dark times, there's always a chance for healing, for things to get better, for hope.
Exactly, and that's what makes the Scarlet Gospels so powerful. It's about facing our fears, seeing the darkness inside us, but choosing hope anyway. Choosing love. Choosing to fight for a better world.
There's that scene where Harry faces that demon in that empty building. He uses that magic syllogism thing to weaken it. Blew my mind, that part.
It shows you how powerful knowledge can be, understanding how the supernatural world works. Harry, because of everything he's been through and because of Kaz, he gets magic. And he uses it. It's like he's using words as weapons against the darkness.
And it shows that even when you're up against something really powerful, you can still fight back. Think outside the box, or in this case, outside how magic usually works.
Exactly. Barker's telling us that we're not powerless against evil, even when it seems like we are. We can use our smarts, our creativity, our understanding of things to resist.
It's like some supernatural chess match, right? Harry's always trying to outsmart his enemies, using everything he can.
That's it, and you never know what's going to happen next. Keeps you hooked.
Remember that scene when Harry and his crew get to hell and find that grove with those weird dark fruits? It's described as beautiful but creepy at the same time.
Barker loves to mess with what we expect, right? We think of hell as fire and torture, but he gives us something different. A place that's attractive and dangerous at the same time.
Like that fruit, it's tempting, but, it'll probably mess you up somehow.
For sure. It shows how sneaky evil can be. It can look good, feel good, just to trick you into its trap.
Like that puzzle box, all those intricate carvings, nice to touch, but it just leads to pain.
Exactly. That fruit, the box, they're both like warnings. Don't trust things that seem too good to be true. There's always a catch. Always a dark side.
Speaking of dark sides, that scene where Pinhead's torturing Norma and Felix and begs for her life, it's brutal, and it makes you mad.
Oh, that's a big moment in the book, that scene. It shows you how cruel Pinhead can be and how far Felix's loyalty goes. He might be Pinhead's servant, but he still has some compassion, some humanity. Pinhead's lost all that.
And when Felixson tries to defend himself, saying, "My master is a great lord," and Pinhead just shuts him down. "You speak as if your life meant something." Man, that line gives me chills.
It shows how little Pinhead cares about anything but his own goals. He sees people as tools, things to use and throw away.
And the way he just ignores Felixson begging for Norma, it's cold.
He doesn't have any empathy. He doesn't care. He's focused on his goals, even if it hurts other people.
Which makes Harry caring about Norma even more powerful. He risks everything to save her, even though he might die.
It shows how strong their bond is, their shared humanity in the face of all that darkness.
And when they escape hell through that tiny passage in Lucifer's tomb, it's like a light breaking through the darkness.
They win for a moment. Shows how strong they are, how they never give up hope. Even with everything falling apart around them, they escape evil.
Makes you wonder about those passages, those doorways between worlds. It's not just a physical thing, right?
It's symbolic, too, like the line between the physical and the spiritual world, between what we know and what we don't.
Yeah, like those in-between places where the rules of reality don't quite work, where anything could happen.
Exactly, and it's in those places that Harry and his friends can go beyond their world and fight the darkness on their own terms.
And talking about fighting, what about that scene with the Azil demons on the shores of Lake Hell? They look freaky, but they actually help Harry and his group.
Barker always flips things around, right? We think demons are all bad, but here's a whole trag of them. Weird, sure, but helpful in their own way. They look messed up, but they do something good.
And how they worship Lucifer, even though he's weak now, it adds to how the book looks at faith and devotion. Even in hell, people still believe in something.
It shows how much we crave something bigger than ourselves, right? Belief in a higher power, even if that power isn't perfect.
And all their chanting, those weird rhythms, it adds to the creepy atmosphere of the book. Like Barker's taking us to another world.
He's really good at doing that, pulling you into the story, making you feel like the rules don't apply anymore, like anything could happen.
Speaking of anything happening, remember when Harry uses Kaz's cane to find his way through Lucifer's cathedral? It's got eyes on the walls, showing secret paths.
Magic and technology all mixed together. That cane is like a divining rod. It lets Harry see what others can't, the hidden connections and patterns in the cathedral.
Like he's hacking the building, using the cane to get past its defenses, find its secrets.
That's it. And Harry's always using his smarts like that, finding new ways to do things. That's what makes him so cool. He's not just a fighter, he's a thinker, a planner, always adapting.
One of the creepiest parts, I think, is in that empty building where the door to hell opens up right on Harry's map of New York. It's like the line between worlds is getting blurry. Hell's coming to Earth.
It's a powerful image, right? The forces of darkness are pushing into our world. The fight between good and evil isn't far away. It's right here, right now. It's scary to think that hell could be closer than we realize.
Totally. Makes you wonder what's real anymore. And when Harry closes that door, sends the puzzle box back to hell, that's a huge sacrifice. He's protecting everyone else, even though it puts him in danger.
He's grown up a lot, Harry. He's not that reckless young detective anymore, out for revenge. Now he's a protector. He understands what fighting the darkness really costs.
And speaking of protection, remember when he summons the string yard to fight that hook demon? It's like he's tapping into some primal power, something beyond just his physical strength.
It shows you how strong his spirit is, how much he wants to survive. The string yard, it's a mystery, but it seems to respond to Harry's need, his will. Like we all have this hidden strength inside us, something we can use when things get tough.
Like that scene where he's escaping the house in DuPont Circle as it's falling apart. He's hurt bad, but he keeps going. Pure survival instinct.
Exactly. Barker's showing us that we can get through hard stuff, push ourselves further than we think we can when we have to survive. And Harry's like that. He's not some superhero. He's human. He gets hurt. He's always being tested. That's what makes you connect with him.
And he never gives up. Always fighting, even when it seems impossible.
And that's what makes it even sadder when he loses his sight. It shows how much his fights have cost him, what he sacrificed to fight the darkness.
But even blind, he finds a new way to help people, a new way to fight.
He becomes this beacon for people lost in the darkness, a guide.
It's like he's gone full circle, from a detective investigating weird stuff to a protector, a shepherd for lost souls. And then there's Lucifer coming back. What a scene. He's back, but not to the hell he used to rule.
It's like he's totally lost Lucifer. He's in this new place. He's not powerful anymore. It shows how vulnerable he is, how out of place he feels. He's not in control anymore.
And he's naked, right? That's such a powerful image. He's lost everything.
It shows how far he's fallen. Even the most powerful can be brought down. Nobody can escape fate.
And the angels, they don't even care about him. It's scary how vast the universe is, how small and insignificant we are.
Yeah, it makes you feel tiny, alone. Lucifer sees what he's become, and it's humbling.
And then he gets angry, wants to destroy everything. It's like a scream of frustration, lashing out because he's lost control.
It shows how powerful anger and bitterness can be, even in defeat. Lucifer, the ruler of hell, is just pure rage now, wants to destroy everything.
And when he unleashes the Quado, that monster from the lake, it's like the whole world's ending.
It's all about destruction, things we can't control. What Lucifer does affects everything.
And the harrowers escaping through that wormhole just as everything's falling apart, like they're running from the end of the world.
They barely make it out alive. They escape, but they leave everything behind, like refugees from a dying world.
And they come back to Earth. It's so different from hell.
It's familiar, normal, but something's changed. They're different now. They can't just go back to how things were.
And then Norma dies. It's so sad. It reminds you that their journey cost something, what they sacrificed to fight the darkness. Harry's really affected by it.
Her death is powerful. It reminds you that life's fragile, but the human spirit is strong. But even in death, she guides Harry. Her spirit's a light in the dark.
And her last message to Harry about the world needing to heal. It's like she's telling us to do something, that the fight between good and evil never ends.
That message stays with you, makes you think about how you affect the world and if you can make a difference, even in a small way.
Speaking of making a difference, that scene with Harry and the Reverend Cutshaver and his people, it reminds you that evil can be anywhere, even in normal places.
Oh, yeah. The Reverend and his group, they're a sneaky kind of evil. They've twisted faith and morality. They think they're the chosen ones going to be saved while everyone else burns.
And they're willing to sacrifice Norma, send her to hell because she's different. It's scary how dangerous intolerance and fanaticism can be.
It shows that evil can look good, like it's holy and righteous. It can hide in plain sight.
And Harry, he stands up to them, doesn't back down even though they threaten him. It shows how brave he is, how strong his morals are.
He's good, but in a practical way. He's willing to fight for what's right, even when it's hard. He doesn't run from a fight, even when he's outnumbered.
And when he gets out of that limo, it's like he's rejecting their whole way of thinking. He's breaking free, physically and mentally.
It's a powerful moment. He's taking back his control. Harry won't be defined by their narrow view of the world. He makes his own choices.
And speaking of choices, when Harry, even though he's blind, embraces being a guide for lost souls, it shows how strong he is, how he finds meaning, even after everything he's lost.
He finds strength from being vulnerable. He doesn't need his physical sight anymore. Now he sees with his inner vision. He connects with people who are lost and searching. He finds a new way to help people.
And when he talks to Norma's ghost at the end, it shows how strong their bond is, how their journey together continues, even after death.
It's like a closing chapter, accepting things, finding peace. They're connected beyond life and death. It gives you hope, even when things are sad.
And that last image, Harry in his dark apartment, surrounded by ghosts asking for help. It's creepy, but hopeful too. He's found what he's supposed to do.
It's like saying, even in death, we can still connect, find guidance, keep learning. It's hopeful, even in the face of all that darkness.
And the last line, hell was easy, romance was hard. It's funny in a way. Reminds you that even in the dark, there's still room for humor, irony, for seeing the absurdity of life.
Perfect ending for a book like this. It's about good and evil, how fragile life is, and how strong the human spirit can be. Reminds you that even when things are scary, there's still humor, connection, beauty.
Well said. So we've gone deep into the Scarlet Gospels. What are some things our listeners should think about? What are the big ideas Barker's trying to get across?
The most important thing, I think, is that it wants us to look at the darkness inside ourselves, to see how seductive power is, how we could all be corrupted. But it also reminds us that even with all that evil, there's still hope, that we're strong, that we can find connection and meaning, even in the darkest places.
It's like that part where Harry and Lana are trying to free Kaz and Dale from that weird spell in Lucifer's tomb. It turns out the demons aren't physically trapped. It's their own fear, thinking they're cursed.
Right. It shows how much our beliefs and perceptions can affect us, right? How fear can control us, and how questioning those beliefs can set us free. Sometimes we're our own worst enemy.
And in the hospital, that blind woman who can see the spirits hurting the doctor. It makes you think about who's really powerful, who's really vulnerable.
For sure. She might be blind, but she has this gift, this way of seeing that others don't. She reminds us that strength isn't always physical. It's about caring, understanding, and seeing beyond what's right in front of you.
And all those images of blood and fire throughout the book, they feel so real, so strong. What do you think Barker's doing with those?
Blood and fire, they're basic, powerful symbols. They make you feel stuff, good and bad. But it's life, it's energy, but also violence, sacrifice. Fire can destroy, but it can also cleanse and renew.
It's like they showed the two sides of everything, right? Creation and destruction, order and chaos, light and darkness. The Scarlet Gospels is all about those contrasts.
Exactly. And in that push and pull, that's where we find meaning, purpose, and how we grow. Life isn't easy. It's messy, it's challenging, and that's what makes us who we are.
Well said. So for our listeners who've been with us through all this, what's one last question they should think about after finishing the Scarlet Gospels?
It really makes you think, doesn't it? After going through all that darkness and intensity, what sticks with you? What changes how you see the world?
Yeah, it's like what stays with you after the book is closed? What makes you look at your own life differently?
So here's a question to chew on. If the world, like Barker's saying, is this battlefield between good and evil, where do you stand? Are you fighting the darkness? Or just watching from the sidelines? And what would it take for you to jump in, face your fears, and actually fight the stuff that wants to destroy us all?
That's a heavy one to end on. It's not about like becoming some supernatural warrior, right?
No, no, not at all. It's about the choices we make every single day.
So being kind instead of cruel, choosing compassion, being brave instead of giving in to fear.
Exactly. And you don't have to do something huge, be a superhero. It's the little things. Being kind, showing compassion, standing up for what's right, even when it's hard. Those things make a difference. Tip the scales towards good, you know?
Like that ripple effect. One small thing can change a lot.
Exactly. The Scarlet Gospels reminds us that even when things are really bad, even when we see terrible stuff, we can still choose hope. Choose love. Choose to fight for a better world. And those choices, that's what makes us human.
Powerful stuff. And while we've been talking, I keep thinking about that scene where Harry and Lana find Kaz and Dale in Lucifer's tomb. It wasn't real chains holding them, right?
No, it was their own fear. They believed in that curse so much, it trapped them. They gave up, stopped fighting.
And that's like a metaphor for how we get stuck sometimes, our own thoughts, our fears, even when nothing's really holding us back.
Exactly. Fear's a powerful prison. Sometimes to get free, you got to question what you believe, what you're afraid of. We have more power than we think.
And that scene in the hospital with the blind woman who sees the spirits hurting the doctor, it flipped everything around, you know? Who's really strong, who's weak.
It really does. She can't see physically, but she has this gift, a way of seeing that other people don't. She reminds us that strength isn't just about muscles. It's about empathy, caring, seeing more than just what's on the surface.
And all that blood and fire imagery in the book, it's so in your face, so strong. What do you think Barker's doing with that?
Blood and fire, they're such basic symbols, but they hit you hard. They make you feel something. Blood is about life, but also violence, what we sacrifice. Fire can destroy, but it can also clean things, make them new again.
Like two sides of the same coin, right? Creating and destroying. Order and chaos. Light and dark. The Scarlet Gospels is all about that.
It is. It doesn't hide from the dark stuff, the violence, the horrible things that are out there. But it also tells us that even with all that, there's still hope. There's redemption. There's change.
The Scarlet Gospels, it's a book that sticks with you. It makes you think, it makes you uncomfortable, but it also inspires you.
That's the power of good horror, right? It makes you face the dark stuff inside yourself and in the world. But it also reminds you that you can choose hope, choose love, choose to fight for something better.
And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up our deep dive into the Scarlet Gospels. Thanks for coming along on this wild ride with us. We hope you keep exploring, keep questioning, keep diving deep into the stories that spark your imagination.
Until next time, keep your minds open, your hearts brave. There's so much out there, good and bad. And it's up to you to choose your path.